anyone that can make that on here.
We're going live on Facebook.
Pardon?
We're going live on Facebook.
Oh, okay, good.
And then I will use either my phone or my laptop, which I'm connected to my hotspot, so it won't affect our video quality or the city's internet at all.
Okay.
So that I can see what questions they're asking.
Okay. And we'll be prepared for maybe a pause. I'll put.
And we are on at the moment. We've got about 5 people in the room with us.
Oh, okay, good.
Craig Romey's on, Brett Noctigal, Don Ackerman. And let me finish getting the PowerPoint up, and then I'll see their names. But hello, everyone out there. We can't hear you yet. We have everyone muted who comes in the call to start with. But later on, if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand using Zoom's raise hand option. And we'll be able to answer questions at the end. Also, if you're viewing on Facebook, we're on there simultaneously. And I'll be monitoring that so that those questions can be answered by Mayor Kotti. Mayor Kotti?
Yes.
Just a quick technical thing. I need you to enter your password for your Apple.
Okay.
For your Apple account. Just going to make sure that this share works.
Okay. Excellent.
Brett Noctigal, you're on the line, correct? I just unmuted you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you for helping me check this. Can I have you try the raise your hand function just so I can test that? I think you have to hover over the screen. It's in the little menu.
Where's the raise your hand thing?
There should be when you hover over the video, there should be a the 3 dots, and where it says more. Depending on what device you're on, there should be the option there to raise hand. Not sure if you're on your computer or if you're on your mobile device.
Yeah, I'm on my desktop in my office, but I'm still not seeing that particular option.
Okay. It may also be if you open up the participants tab where you can see everyone.
Okay, there it is. Got it.
There we go. And now you've raised your hand. Fantastic. I'll lower your hand for you. Thank you so much for helping me test that out, Brett.
Yep.
There's about 24 people currently watching on Facebook. And folks will be starting here in about 7 minutes, 6.5, 7 minutes. About 4 minutes left to go before we start. And we are set here, so I'll turn the controls over to the mayor. 3 minutes.
I got 550. Yeah. There's an 18-inch out. down that pipe and there's a joint right in the center of where it failed. Oh. So they're gonna block out the concrete on both ends, they cut it out. So they probably gonna get down to the softness and opening it up, letting water.
2 minutes left.
Okay.
Oh, okay. We're gonna go with a layer of rock, and then imitation geogrid, that's another layer of rock, past that.
You close that door, John. Come on in, thanks.
I have a face for radio.
So do I.
Set all the
Take off to the side.
You're gonna put me in a catbird seat.
Yeah.
About a minute left. We'll start it off.
And remember, it's like layaway at Walmart.
Yeah,
If you don't set it aside, you'll never get it.
that's true. And you'll help if I get
Yep.
over here. Okay, good.
Absolutely.
You're not leaving then.
No,
That's good.
no,
Okay.
I'm not going anywhere. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Whenever you're ready.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Looks like we've got some folks that are tuning in, and I really appreciate that. And what we want to talk about is the vision for our downtown, and specifically the Hot Springs Suspended Sidewalk. We'll have an opportunity at the end of the presentation to go ahead and ask some questions, but let's get started and take a look at some background. You know, back when I came to Hot Springs several years ago as the director of the Chamber in Economic Development, I read a book called The Walmart Effect. And it highlighted how the big box stores like Walmart, Target, and so forth cause a change in our downtown areas. And the question that comes as a result of that, do downtowns have to die? And can communities do something about it? And one of the things that we were involved in, it was looking at the example of Rapid City and their Main Street Square. That Main Street Square, the community of the downtown community of Rapid City united together to hire a consultant by the name of Roger Brooks to assist in them redefining or saving their downtown. Mr. Brooks is a recognized expert. In revitalizing downtowns, tourism. He helps communities with community development. And I had the privilege of attending those meetings with Roger Brooks in Rapid City as they developed that Main Street Square idea. Frankly, I was skeptical that putting a splash park in the middle of town would work. But Rapid's Main Street Square has revitalized the downtown area of Rapid City. If you'll notice, they have multiple events there throughout the year. It serves as a gathering place, both for people that are living there, residents and tourists alike. The empty businesses that dotted the downtown Rapid City have filled up, and the sales tax revenues are increasing. And you say, well, that was Rapid City, but what about Hot Springs? Well, I did have the opportunity to pull Mr. Brooks aside. I said, we can't pay you the thousands of dollars to help us out, but can you give us some free advice? And I handed him my business card with the Hot Spring Splash logo. And he said, highlight your water. Highlight your water. Make sure you develop around the water, was the answer that he provided us. And I think he has some guiding philosophy that is very, very important. Every community does have the potential of becoming a thriving and sustainable and desirable place to live, invest in, and visit, even with the Walmart effect. And I think that's something that we are well aware of, those of us that live here in Hot Springs, that we do have a very desirable place to live. And I think we also want to be careful that we don't price ourselves out of living here in Hot Springs. But not raising taxes involves more than just cutting budgets. It requires the community to also look at increasing its revenues. I guess I'd look at it this way: if I had a $10 an hour job, and with the cost of living going up, and I just kept working at that $10 an hour job, and suddenly I found out that cost of living much that I really couldn't buy my family 3 squares a day. So I would come to my family and ask them, hey, can you do without breakfast? You keep working at that $10 an hour a job. I think the idea is that I better go out and find a higher paying job or find more hours to work. And I think that that's what a community needs to do too, to look for ways that we can increase revenues without raising taxes. And as a mayor, as a city council, we have a responsibility to be looking ahead, to be looking to the future, not just fixing those things that come up today, but also to look to fix things that that can make our community better in years to come. So we go back to Hot Springs. We do have a beautiful downtown. It's filled with historic sandstones. We were named one of America's dozen distinctive destinations in 2009. And yet we still have some empty buildings in our downtown area, particularly along River Street. And the recent fire took out a block of businesses that we're now trying to rebuild. We do have an opportunity, though, as highway construction comes through our area. It's going to it comes through our entire business district. And one of the things that was decided earlier on was to move the diagonal parking closer to the businesses along River Street. But using federal highway dollars means that you have to follow federal highway criteria. And parallel parking along River Street requires that there's a sidewalk along the flood wall. And also, when we're looking at reconstruction, the city has to pay extra for enhancements, things like urban streetlights and so forth. And so South Dakota Department of Transportation presented us with their preliminary plans several years ago. And there were some major shortfalls that we felt really needed some resolution. The added 6-foot sidewalk near the flood wall caused some serious problems. First of all, River Street traffic lanes were reduced to only 11 feet. And now that's on a major US highway that has heavy truck traffic. And so that created quite a bit of concern. The sidewalk on the east side, or the business side of River Street, had to be reduced at least 1 or 2 or 3 feet along the whole route of River Street. This again reduces the business's ability to display their wares, to set up tables, and would crowd pedestrians as they're trying to navigate the downtown area. There's also would need to be a safety railing along the mismatched flood wall. And our city engineer, Tracy, calls that a trash catcher at best. And then the design created a documented safety hazard. What I'd like to do now is take you outside and let's go take a look at exactly what I was talking about. Show you what the current DOT design without the suspended sidewalk would look like, if you can imagine with me. Right against this wall would remain the same. Probably about a foot out from that would be a railing that would be about this high. And along that railing then there would be a 6-foot sidewalk that would come out to approximately here. And then there would be an 8-foot parking lane that would come out and go into the lane of traffic. Let's take a look down at the mismatch of the flood wall also to see exactly what would happen in another location. And we've actually got the markings on the street right here. Again, you have the mismatched flood wall. This is right here where this red mark is, would be where the barrier would be. And behind that, obviously, would be a trash catcher. You've got a 6-foot sidewalk, and then the parking comes out to approximately here. Now you realize on the other side of the street, we'll have diagonal parking. Let's go over and look at how that affects the business side of our street. As you know, the new design would have diagonal parking here. Here is then where the street would come, and the bumpers would go over that diagonal parking as you park your car, a bumper typically out here. And so all of this sidewalk then would be gone with the new design, and only this amount of sidewalk would be left. You have to also have street lights in here, and this would provide little room for any kind of plantings, trees, and so forth. Let's go take a look up the street too and see how it affects our downtown business area up in front of the old vault. Okay, we've got the same markings out in front of the vault, and I think it's very significant because we've got some businesses here that are trying to regenerate and rebuild, and we need to provide them an opportunity to succeed. Again, we want to look here. Here is, if you see just past, about 6 inches past this fence, is where the sidewalk has been. Again, you look across there, you see where the car bumper would be. And look at how narrow the sidewalk is in one of our premier business locations in Hot Springs. Can you imagine being here in the summer, crowded people walking down, somebody coming down in a wheelchair? There's very little room. No room to display wares, no room to put tables out in front and create an atmosphere that people would want to stop and gather. So that's one of the reasons that we think this design that DOT presented is very ineffective and very detrimental to increasing business in our downtown area. But the most important thing is the safety factor. And with all of this squishing together, our traffic lanes are decreased by 2 feet. We have 11-foot lanes, and we've got a major highway that's coming through town, and that creates a very safe, an unsafe situation when you've got tourists that are wandering around trying to take pictures of the beautiful buildings, and we just feel that the suspended sidewalk would provide an additional measure of safety. We'll go back in where it's warm, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about how all that will take place. Thanks. Well, we're back inside, and we'll talk about the suspended sidewalk as a solution. In order to resolve those issues that we identified along North River Street, the City of Hot Springs did invest $25,000 to hire a consulting firm, ISG. And what they looked at was a feasibility study to determine whether a suspended sidewalk would be feasible to construct along the Fall River floodwall. They developed a conceptual design for that sidewalk and then provided us with a cost estimate for the design and the construction of that sidewalk. And here's the concept that they developed. Look here at the engineering drawing here, you see the above ground flange beams that would support the sidewalk. They're anchored with a concrete footing along with reinforced concrete cap and helical piles, again, those depending on the soil conditions. And that could be designed with the engineering firm would have to look at that and determine the most economically feasible method of supporting the sidewalk with the foundation and the head frame. You notice also that we've shown a truss wall that would be where the cables would be attached to support. The decking would be a composite decking, and the composite decking was chosen because it's lighter, it's durable, and would minimize some of the design loads associated with this suspension design. Here's artist's conception of what it would look like along North River Street. Notice it would, the sidewalk is designed to run from the Jennings Bridge up to where the North River Street curves. Just before you get to the Evans Hotel, you'll notice it curves. We excluded that from the design because that required a substantial amount of re-engineering to be able to accommodate that last section between there and the Minnetonka Bridge. Here's a ground view, and you notice that we've got some walking paths down along the river, and some of the cattails removed. Actually, that's not part of the design itself, but I did want to show you the potential of what this would look like, because we'll be talking about it a little bit more detail later on as to what our plans are for the river. But you'll notice a second bridge upriver, and our plans are to create an opportunity for people to walk along the river, enjoy the warm waters of the Fall River. This is what it looks like, and this would be that second bridge where the pathway starts heading downhill toward the waterfall. And again, you see the opportunity to develop an area where people can have access to the river, have access from Centennial Park to the River Street businesses. And looking at it overhead, again, you see the diagonal parking on the toward the businesses, parallel parking toward the sidewalk itself, and the overhanging sidewalk that would provide an opportunity for us to have wider traffic lanes. And so as we look at that, we have some benefits that we want to highlight. Obviously, wider traffic lanes does provide a safer environment. We're able to maintain the current sidewalk width along the east side, which gives us room for businesses. The support system mimics a railroad style that is part of Hot Springs history, bringing people to the Evans Hotel and Evans Plunge. So it fits in with our historic downtown. And we do have a potential for creating a gathering area along River Street and incorporating Centennial Park. You can imagine a park full of the arts and crafts show, balloon festival, the farmers market and so forth, bringing people into town and having people milling around our downtown area. And our design also fits in with a popular Freedom Trail. There are other benefits. The design that we've presented, or ISG presented to us, offers additional options for decorative lighting along the top of the structures or alongside of them. We have wider sidewalks, which offer us landscaping opportunities such as greenery, trees, shrubs, and so forth. The support structures themselves can accommodate such things as flags and banners and Christmas decorations and brighten up the town, while the sidewalk railings themselves could be used eventually as a place to display plaques, maybe honoring veterans, or banners that describe or advertise significant events. Again, I mentioned the Fall River and access to the Fall River. That would be a separate project, and I want to emphasize that's not part of the reconstruction or the suspended sidewalk project. But that would be designed to create pedestrian access to that area, and utilizing erosion blankets to hold the soil and grass. We could allow people down to the warm water, get their feet in the water, wade. It would be part of our flood channel maintenance program. And also, we are looking even now for grants for funding that aspect of the project. So how do we get this addition, and how do we get it funded? Well, ISG provided us a cost estimate for the sidewalk of $2.8 million. That includes both the design and the construction. And I might add, that is a bare bones cost estimate. We didn't inflate that as we went and asked DOT and asked Governor Nome for help in this area. We wanted to keep it as bare bones and as accurate as we possibly could. And DOT came back with us and initially said, hey, this additional sidewalk is considered an enhancement. If you want it, you'll have to pay for it. Well, we did ask a certified safety professional to conduct a safety study and got a report that we did have a potential safety hazard, and that's documented in writing. And one thing I want to mention throughout this whole project, Governor Nome has supported our efforts. She supports Hot Springs as the veterans town, and sees the value of having something like this in our downtown area. So DOT came back and said, you know, we'll provide you with the $2.8 million under these conditions, that we as a city would then take responsibility for all of the maintenance of University Avenue. University Avenue is US Highway 18 through that part of town. The bypass then would become the US Highway 18, and we would be responsible for University Avenue. We'd be responsible also for the design of the sidewalk and the interface with the new highway. We'd have to monitor the construction of the sidewalk and then maintain the sidewalk upon completion. As we assess that offer from DOT, we have the city staff did an outstanding job of reviewing the condition of University Avenue. And we determined that the upper portion of the street was in excellent condition. The street is not subject to a lot of truck loading. It has an urban traffic load, which should also aid in maintaining that good condition of upper University Avenue. However, the two lower bridges caused us some serious concern. Even though they were rated by DOT as being in very good condition, we noticed that there were rusted railings that are going to need to be replaced here relatively soon. Those rusted railings have lead-based paint. Whichever way you go, that's going to be an expensive process to fix those. We also noticed that the approaches to the bridge are box filled with soil, and that creates a more complex and expensive reconstruction challenge. Eventually, those bridges will have to be replaced, and that could be a very expensive process, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 to $40 million. And for a city the size of Hot Springs, even if we were to get a big grant that pays for 80% of that, 20% of that's an awful lot of money to have to pay. And so we ask that those bridges be taken off of DOT's offer. DOT did agree to then provide the $2.8 million. Keep maintenance, we would keep the maintenance responsibility for the upper part of the university. They would maintain the responsibility for maintaining the bridges. It's also important to point out that DOT will complete approximately a $60,000 repair project near the bridges this summer. They'll be looking at repairing some pavement sections and so forth. And the offer that DOT provided has been reviewed by the city, and we're working to get specific clarification exactly where the city maintenance begins. And then we need to double check and ensure the property descriptions within that agreement are accurate. So where do we go from here? Well, Monday night, our city council has one of the most important votes that they'll make on whether we accept the terms of this DOT draft offer or not. If the council approves that accepting that draft offer, that will allow DOT to prepare a formal offer that will be presented to the city for signature and approval. The city then would need to quickly contract a design firm to meet some very stringent design milestones. Now, if the council decides that that's not a gamble we want to take and disapproves, the suspended sidewalk then is dead, and we're stuck with original DOT design. The $2.8 million goes back to the state to benefit another community, another construction project somewhere else within the state. And North River Street is left with a documented safety hazard, leaving future councils liable. Obviously, there's uncertainties with anything that we do. We just all have experienced the uncertainty of the current pandemic, and that may even pull DOT's offer off the table. And cost overruns are always a possibility. We do have some contingencies that are built into the estimate. We can reduce the scope of that project somewhat by maybe taking that second bridge and saving some money. And the city does control the design, but DOT is oversees the construction contractor. And none of us know what the new normal after the COVID-19 pandemic is over, what that will look like. But the upside is that we as a city, due to an excellent council that has watched over our finances, we have an outstanding finance officer, and we are in good financial shape in preparation for this construction. Of course, that is being threatened by the potential of reduced tax revenues throughout this coming year as a result of the pandemic. But going into this summer, we've been in excellent financial shape. The city also did receive over $500,000 in a community development block grant to assist us with the required utility work. And that's a big bonus to us and provides some wiggle room for financing during the construction. There should also be no upfront funds required out of the city's operating budget to get the suspended sidewalk project started. And of course, looking at the uncertainty in the future, there's also an uncertainty in what kind of economic recovery funds would be provided. And I know that Congress is discussing those as we speak. And although nothing has been specified for municipalities or construction projects such as this as of yet. The bottom line, we're facing a decision in our community that will define our downtown for the next 75 to 100 years. And we hope that, that we can develop an opportunity for us to enhance our downtown area, create an opportunity for a gathering spot, and give our businesses an opportunity to prosper in the upcoming future. With that, we'll open it up to questions or comments. And Justin, I'm going to put you on the spot here. And we've got John Gregory here with us as our city administrator. And he has a lot of expertise and has been very familiar, can answer some of the more technical questions too.
All right, so we do have some questions already on Facebook. For people who are calling in on Zoom, if you have any questions, if you're on a computer or a mobile device in the Zoom app, you should have an option to raise your hand. So be sure to do that to let us know that you want to ask a question. But let me get to some of these questions that we've already got on Facebook. The first question that I've got for you, Mayor Kotti, Greg Gunwall says it does make sense to put in the suspended sidewalk. However, if the community chose the suspended sidewalk, would they be 6 feet wide on both sides of the street? And Kara Hagan and Luke Broyles also had the same question about, would the sidewalks on both sides of the river, would they be 6 feet, or how wide would they be?
Basically the sidewalks on the business side or the east side of the street would be what they are now. In that, as you go up through the design, John.
Yes.
So they would not be redone, and they'd be new sidewalks, much wider.
Okay. Next question is from Carl Hall. He says, I assume the highway project is a done deal and a train you can't stop. I agree with the river walkway, but we still have a logistics problem that needs to be addressed. Trucks are still going to come through and cause damage over time. Have we looked at a small distribution hub on Highway 79 or 79-385-18 so that we can reduce the amount of semi-traffic / create local employment at the hub, or smaller delivery trucks, etc.?
Well, the short answer to that is, first of all, the highway design will be a concrete structure that will be designed much more rigid than the current design, and should be able to withstand that truck traffic. We haven't specifically looked at that hub. It's an excellent idea, but that's outside of the jurisdiction of our city, and we have not looked at it. It sounds like an excellent idea, and maybe you can add some more on the exact design of the pavement itself, being a concrete pavement.
The pavement section is a heavy-duty pavement section. It is designed with a brand new subgrade, everything beneath the surface of the road to 2 feet deep. It has a life expectancy of 40 years on average, with a maintenance period of every 20 years. So we would get a lot more length of service out of this road, and it would be less of a maintenance nightmare than it is now.
Okay, an additional question as a follow-up from Kara Hagan. Will there be green spaces for flower pods or trees?
And that's something that would we would have the space to do that. And certainly that would be something that we would ask our ISG designers to look at, is where those plantings could be made that would not interfere with line of sight. And the council will be considering a resolution to look at the existing pods and define where those already have been identified. And we've been working with Hot Springs Beautiful to make an agreement to have them maintain those pods as they do currently.
Okay, Risa Rutz says, once again, would we be able to address implementing 2-hour during business hours, 8 to 5 parking on the business sides of the roads on both Chicago and North River streets, or add parking meters?
And that's something that is not a part of this design, but certainly as that is completed, that would be something that you know, the businesses, if that's something that's desired, future councils and organizations would have to look at.
There's a question here from Carl Hall again. Is there a model projection of how many businesses we might lose during the construction?
There has been no model or a way of really looking into it. We hope and pray that we've been working and suggesting to the Department of Transportation that they use a high early strength concrete to minimize the disruption. But we know there's always going to be a disruption with businesses. But that's something that we've also been working with the Chamber of Commerce on, is that we need to ensure that the Black Hills area, visitors that come to our area know that Hot Springs is open, and that we make accommodations for our visitors and try to schedule the construction at those key choke points so that it won't have a major impact. But it's good question.
Following up on that, Luke Broyles asked, did we ever decide if we were going to contract Prairie Hills Transit trolley during construction to help move tourists around downtown?
That was looked at, Luke, and there was not a decision made on that. I think some of the folks looked at the possibility of doing that. I know I had visited with someone from Deadwood about purchasing a trolley from the city of Deadwood that is used up there for a very reasonable price. Unfortunately, Hill City got that before we were able to get a hold of that. But that is something that you know, certainly businesses could look at and could be looked at with Prairie Hills Transit if as an alternative.
Carrie Hagan also wants to ask, is there a model projection of how improvements to our downtown might increase future value and business to our downtown? And then in addition to that, wanted to important to a downtown environment.
Again, there's no model. That's something that if you know, we wanted to invest several $1,000s that I know that Roger Brooks was able to do in modeling for Rapid City. He had a projection and a prediction of how the tax revenues would go up, and I believe that they have met those projections or exceeded those. And I know when he gave his presentation, he went back into communities that he had worked with, and they showed the before and the after of the projections of the revenues that the businesses had as a result of the improvements that were made in their downtown areas.
On the Zoom group chat, Rajni is asking, in regards to the safety evaluation that was made, Is that of the existing conditions? What exactly was unsafe? Had we had accidents of this type on record? What safety concerns would there be with a suspended sidewalk, i.e. falling, failure, etc.?
Okay, of course, the sidewalk itself would be designed, it would have appropriate railings, the strength, so that should not be a problem. The safety issue was looked at with the reduced traffic lanes. And what the safety observer did was observe the situation during a busy time during the summer. And one doesn't have to be an expert to see how that would impact. Anecdotally, looking out my window here at the mayor's office, I have seen a lot of near misses, people that have walked out into the street with their cameras. Fortunately, the traffic stops and allows them to take their picture. We had a group that was visiting us to look at giving us a grant to help us fund the sidewalk. We were gathered on the bridge across from City Hall. A young man came across the bridge on a bicycle. We let him through, and he came within an inch of hitting a car. If that traffic lane would have been a foot less, he would have had a collision with a car. Fortunately, the car was able to stop. It was going at a reasonable speed. The young man was not wearing a helmet, and we could have had a very much of a tragedy. So where we haven't had a lot of documented accidents, the potential is there. And by narrowing those traffic lanes, that increases the potential greatly.
Dave Euling wanted to ask, he's got kind of two questions here. Who pays for the second bridge? And then what is the projected timeline for construction in terms of this summer, next summer, and for how long?
It would be the second bridge is a part of the $2.8 million project. And the timeline, we have not seen a construction timeline. John, I don't know if they provided any recent information as to when they're planning on starting and how they're planning on scheduling that.
As of this time, we have not been provided an update since the delays with the COVID-19 pandemic. We had deadline dates of September for preliminary design, December for final design, February for bid letting of 2021. Past that date, they haven't confirmed any additional dates or lengths of construction. We are working on the staging intervals of where they will be working at what season.
Okay. Are there any other questions that folks have? Oh, here we go. Deborah J. Says, I was initially concerned with the, is that I-beam, L-beam? I was initially concerned with the construction design, not enhancing the historical look of downtown, but your idea about the railroad history, it does fit in. I remember the railroad tracks going through town on that side of the street.
Well, thank you. And that was one of the things that Tracy Bastian came up with, that he too is remembers a lot of history in Hot Springs and wanted to make sure that the design was copacetic with our history. Okay.
Don't currently have any outstanding questions on Facebook. We don't currently have more in the Zoom group chat. And I don't currently see any hands raised for telephone questions. Do we want to give them one more opportunity, maybe another minute or so, just for them to, if they think of anything? Should we do that?
Well, okay. And again, as we're waiting, again, I thank you, those of you that are interested enough to tune in. It's been a hard process of getting this this meeting scheduled. As you know, we had it scheduled and just before the fire, and then with the pandemic and responding to that, it's been some rough times here, but I'm glad we wanted to get the information out and accurate information out so that everyone had an understanding of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it.
Okay, sounds like Don Ackerman's got a question by phone. Here we go. Don, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead with your question, Don.
Okay, just make me a quick comment. Thank you, Mayor Kotti, for what you've done. I was there when you talked to the governor, and I know how much work you went through to make that happen. And the reality is that the street will go through either our way or their way. It's their street. But what I would like to say, if we can write it in the contract, I think since it's a veterans town, we should require a percentage of the workers to be veterans. And I think we could probably talk to get governor into that. Something like 20% be on the fair side. But just food for thought, but I just want everybody to understand that you put a lot of work into this, and also our governor just look shining on us. That's all I have.
Thank you, Don, and thank you for the support. I know that you've been an advocate and also been a supporter with our governor concerning Hot Springs becoming the veterans town. So we appreciate all you do for our community.
Okay, Beth Millard on Facebook has a question. What businesses are currently doing business? This reconstruction needs to be postponed as it will cause more stress on an already stressful time.
Okay, could you repeat that again?
Yeah. What businesses are currently doing business? This reconstruction needs to be postponed as it will cause more stress on an already stressful time.
The construction will not be going on during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, I'm sure that we'll have to recover from the pandemic, and but it'd be right on the heels of it. So we understand the difficult economic times, and we're going to have to band together as a community and work our way through this.
Rajni has a couple additional questions. How do the merchants feel about these proposals, and why can't we just keep the road system as it is? Here we go, one moment. Oh, sorry, we lost our sound. There we go. Not sure what happened there. John, if you would re-answer that last question again, I think we may have lost audio on that
Okay.
for a moment. So Rajni's question about the road system.
The road system is a federally funded project, so the new road construction must meet current federal road construction guidelines for right-of-way and also sidewalk widths, curb widths, and other design aspects. The adding of the sidewalk suspended sidewalk project will fit into the federal highway program design requirements, giving the additional lane width that would be the safety benefit to our community.
Okay, looks like one other question from Carl Hall. If the city is going to be responsible for maintaining the Riverwalk, funding needs to be available to do the maintenance and repairs by qualified, competent professionals. I have pictures of the welding done at the waterfall bridge, and it is atrocious. 30 years a Navy welder and more than qualified to make this comment.
Thank you for your input.
Yep. And it looks like that's all the questions we currently have. I don't see any further raised hands. So if you wanted to wrap up, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, again, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the interest. Thank you for the excellent questions. And we will make a decision Monday at Monday night's council meeting. If you have a strong opinion either way, I'd encourage you to get a hold of your council representative and let them know how you feel. And I thank you, Justin, for getting us through this and getting us online. And thanks,
Absolutely.
John, for being here and bailing us out.
And usually the last thing, if folks have any more feedback, where should they send that? If they have,
My
if they watch
email.
this later.
To my email,
Okay, and that is
johng@hs-sd.org.
fantastic. Thank you everyone for tuning in.